Hi, my name is Winsley, and welcome to my Shakarn Doctrine tier list. At the beginning of April, I posted my complete Doctrine tier list, which looks like this. And yeah, that was back before Invasions launched, and we got access to the Shakarn race. So the Shakarn Doctrines are not actually on this list, and while I would have loved to place them in here, for this video and this discussion, my life has been rather busy lately. I got a new job, which requires that I move, and my cat has been kind of sick, so I've been like in and out of the vet a couple times this week and a couple times last week and a little bit before that. So yeah, it's been really hard for me to put all my energy into Planetfall. I've been trying. I love the expansion. I think it's really cool. All the things that they've added. Um, but yeah, it's just a little bit crazy and hard to find all the time that I wanted to make my weekly guides. If you're not aware, I've been doing a lot of Planetfall guides like this in before, and I went through each set of doctrines, kind of like I will for this list back in April and a little bit of May. I kind of spread them out before the um, introductions of invasions. So yeah, I want to update this. I want to place them in here. We're going to go over today where I would place them if I were to have done it, but I just didn't get around to it. It's also something that I feel like I need to get a little bit of feedback on before I finalize a complete Doctrine tier list for the Invasions DLC. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the points I make today. If you strongly agree, just agree. You feel neutral, you strongly disagree, you disagree with any of the points that I make here, please let me know in the comments below. Even if you see this more than a week later after I've posted the complete Doctrine tier list, I'd love to know your thoughts, because I expect future expansions and patches will change how good some of the numbers are associated with some of the doctrines. And yeah, um, they'll probably stay the same for a while. They stayed the same for about 9 months between the launch of the game up until the Tyrannosaurus patch. Then they changed some things around with the Amazon and I think one or two other doctrines, but mostly the Amazon got some changes. And yeah, I think these numbers should stay the same for quite some time, but you know, they could change, and I'd love to know your thoughts, especially on these doctrines if they do change around a lot. So yeah, let's dive into it. Okay, so the first doctrine we're going to take a closer look at is Dwelling Intimidation. Up at the top in the S tier, it's got a 1 in the top left and a little arrow pointing up for the synergy. That means that it is pretty accessible. You can get it very early in the game. The 1 means it's accessible. The arrow says that it's better with synergy, so if you invest heavily in a certain strategy, this becomes really good. You could even consider potentially boosting it up to the next tier, and because this is in the top tier, it takes it to a very special level, a very special place. Let's take a quick look at what we have here. You'll see that there's a little arrow next to, I think, just Noble Diplomats, or maybe one actually next to the Assembly Doctrine Scavengers. Yeah, that would make sense. Scavengers does to get better if you invest in that a lot, and it takes it to be better than these other 3 that are ahead of it if you don't invest heavily in that synergy, but it has a lot of inherent value. So yeah, let's actually jump over to the game really quickly to see what it says for this. It says that you will get a 10% discount when dealing with NPC factions, and on top of that you get the faction quest war quest rewards at 6 units instead of 10. Now, this doesn't just reduce the cost of bribing units off an NPC faction. If I go over to here, we'll find this NPC faction, and you'll see that you can buy things off of them. I think I can, right? Is it because we hadn't found them yet? Yeah, you can buy things off of them. This number can be reduced by 10% if you enact that thing, but also it will reduce the amount of influence it costs to buy factions off of little landmarks or sites like this. I think there's little locations all around the map that are controlled by the spacers that you can buy them off of. Just costs money. Is there one I can show up here, maybe. Not really, but yeah, that's really good. There are very few things that save you that much influence very early in the game. So by saving influence, you'll be able to get more rewards, more units, and that adds up very, very quickly. I think that this synergizes really well with the other things that the Shakarn specialize at. So I like it a lot. It's not quite as good as Noble Diplomats because Noble Diplomats gives you influence and energy. Let me just pull up Noble Diplomats. Yeah, and I think that that value that you get from the mix of those valuable resources is very nice. You'll be able to have a lot of upkeep supported here and buy units with that. The Dwelling Intimidation doesn't do anything for upkeep, so it's yeah, maybe slightly worse than Noble Diplomats. I think I'd put it yeah, a little bit after Noble Diplomats, ahead of the others though. Housepet did point out that there is a small issue with how overflow works. If you're in a big fight where you're getting attacked by 2 stacks at the same time, you will still only get 1 faction war reward when you smash those 2 stacks, unless they split up. So yeah, keep that in mind. The next doctrine we're going to take a closer look at is active agent networks, which is also marked with a better with synergy icon. It is a tier 5 tech, or it's at the 5th level of technology. It is very, very nice, and if we hop on over to the game for a second, you'll see that it is got some very similar benefits to Noble Diplomats. I like it a lot. It for that reason, I think I would put it further up in the A tier, close to the very top. Maybe the very first one in the A tier, because yeah, it almost is competitive with the ones in the S tier, but I think there's certain things about it that I just don't like. Like, you have to infiltrate other players to get that influence, and that can be kind of hard to do depending on the settings that you're playing on. If you're going against somebody easy, do you really need to infiltrate them to get this benefit? Probably not. You probably have enough benefits without this. I think of it kind of like a win more doctrine. If you have this, you can and you can infiltrate players, you can use this to win even more, but you're probably going to get most of the advantage you need from infiltrating, especially as Shakarn. But it does, I think, synergize very, very nicely with the race and what the race specializes in. It's supposed to infiltrate and get some technology off of other players. But if you just look at the +4 operational strength that you get, that's massive alone by itself. There's one that gives you +5, and then one that gives you, I think, +3 in both defense and offense. So having that +4 be just one aspect of this, a very minor aspect of this, if you ask me, it's kind of a big deal, because it will make it a lot easier for you to do what you want to as Shakarn, to go around infiltrating, especially if you combine it with all the other covert operations. There's another covert operation that the Shakarn, or no, a covert doctrine that the Shakarn have access to, and I know a lot of people love combining that. I heard that on the forums when I asked some people about what do they think is strong and what they think is kind of weak. But yeah, I think compared to Cloak and Dagger, the Syndicate one, this is the better choice. It just is. What were they saying? What else? It's just great for getting extra influence, so you can buy like units. Yeah, I love that stuff. That's why I like Noble Diplomats. So this is the guy that is saying that the reduction is, oh, that's for the other one. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next thing. It is worth adding that one of the big limiting factors for covert operations is influence. This will give you more influence, and the other one will reduce how much influence you have to spend in order to get your covert operations. So yeah, using the 2 Shakarn in combination will really help boost this up in my tier list. I think take it up to S tier, or even past that, if you really, really are into covert ops. Okay, so the next doctrine we're going to take a closer look at is Heightened Domok Regimen, which is very good. It is almost tied with active agent networks. It's definitely going to be near the top of my complete tier list. I'm thinking that it could go, I think, right after Divine Legion, or maybe even in front of it. I might have both of those two Shakarn Doctrines that we just got be right at the top of A. I think they're that good. You could definitely make the argument that Heightened Domok thing is better than the active agent one because of all the benefits you get from. Oh, I didn't bring it up. Let's try and find Heightened Domok regimes. So yeah, this just inherently gives you a lot of really nice things. Very few things in the game will give you plus 10% damage just against all enemy types. And then you get a massive reduction in upkeep, and it gives you extra accuracy. So it's just an all-around amazing doctrine. You don't need anything else to go with it to get anything out of it. But I think just having +4 operational strength could be arguably better than this, because that will help you getting your whole covert operation game going. I'm torn. I think I might want to put this as the first in the A tier. It's definitely not S tier. I don't think it is because of how late in the game you're going to get it, but I think as soon as you can unlock this, you should be using it because of just how many benefits you get there and how little hoops you have to jump through in order to get that extra boost. The extermination protocol works similarly. But if you are fighting against Xenoblade, you get extra damage. That's really good. I think there's one for the Amazon that just boosts their damage in general. I know the Celestian get one, but that has a gimmick that you have to appease. I forget what it's called actually. Is it this one? Yeah. Alright, so you have to have enlightened units, which you get through mods or through hero skills or other little neat things. So I don't know. I like Heightened Domok regimes because it doesn't have hoops that you need to jump through in order to get just a boost to raw damage, and raw damage is good. Taking units out faster is helpful. It'll keep you having being able to deal more damage every turn if you have more units on the field. I mean, usually, unless you're going up against a bunch of like high tier units and you've only low tier units. Yeah, people were saying they really like using this if you've got a lot of Domok units because it just works really well. I had you up here not too long ago. This one. They love having this because those benefits, extra damage, extra accuracy, works really well with your Deadeye and your Raiders, and pretty good with your Firebrand. I think especially with upkeep, if you have a bunch of Firebrand, they have a bit of upkeep, so definitely awesome. You know what? Before we move on, I think I do want to show off what you get from Divine Legion and City of the Awakened. That's the things that I have at the top of the A tier, the little blue icons. Let's go find those guys just to quickly compare what you get out of them. Divine Legion gives you resurgence on your special units, the drained, as well as giving them extra shields, and they can carry more charges, which allows them to do more damage. That has a lot of really nice synergy, but even without that synergy, it's really good by itself. If you don't go heavy into drained, you should be able to just get like a little bit of drained, and it's pretty good. I mean, if you don't have any drained, then it's useless. So yeah, but it's pretty easy to get drained. City of the Awakened gives you plus 20 happiness. That's massive. And then colonist acquisition reduced by 20. That's pretty good too. I mean, after a certain point, you don't need more pops. You want to have like 16 in all of your things. So, you know, having more happiness, I think it's slightly more valuable than that. The next doctrine we're going to take a closer look at is Homeworld Reminiscence. It's in the B tier, and it almost made it into the A tier. It's pretty good, but I think compared to some of the other doctrines I had in the A tier, I didn't like it enough, and it kind of fit nicely in the B tier near the Frontier Survival Doctrine. Let's go over to this one. So Frontier Survival it's after all the landmark doctrines, so I think I'd probably place it next to the little tent one, or maybe a little bit further left. It has more value than Frontier Survival because it gives you happiness, and happiness is awesome. Happiness gives you a lot of really nice stuff in the current version of the game. But I haven't taken a really close look and decided where exactly it would make the most sense. I do think it belongs in the B tier though. After thinking about it a little bit more, I think B tier is the right place for it. Let's go take a little look at exactly the numbers you get by going over to the game. Oh, my face is covering, so I'm just going to have to read this to you. So it says colonies gain 12 food and 4 happiness if the coastal or river feature is in their domain. You will only get this stuff once in each colony. You can't get 24 food and 8 happiness for having a coastal and then a river thing in your domain. It's just going to be applied once, and I found that every time I've started up a Shakarn game, I get a river in my capital, and I have water all around, so it's very easy to set up my city so that is applied to all of them. Of course, you can get a really bad setup if you start off in the middle of land and there's no rivers. I think that you might be able to have Shakarn spawn without rivers. I'm not entirely sure about that. But I think it's a pretty safe option for you. It's just a matter of how competitive is that in the long run. If you get it early, really good, I think. If you get it later, maybe don't go for it. Maybe go for some other doctrines. Doctrine slots are very valuable, so keep that all in mind. Some people were saying I do undervalue Frontier Survival, and Homeworld is just as good. So maybe I will bump it back up to A tier if I hear a lot from people about how you feel about that stuff. But yeah, I think Frontier Survival is just, it is plus 15 in all of your colonies. You don't have to worry about placing it in a very specific place. Progressive Cultivation is maybe better, maybe not. It's hard to say because you have to get Arcadian in your things. It's kind of like a combination of the both of the previous ones that I was just talking about. The next doctrine we're going to look at is Holocrafted Zardas channels. It's also in the B tier, although I was thinking about maybe even bumping it down to C tier because I feel like you need synergy to make it like decent. I don't know. It's one of those things where I definitely see there is a lot of potential for making this work with people who focus a lot on covert ops, or maybe even just the hollow shifting mechanic. But for me, I think I would probably place it somewhere near the bottom, maybe the second to last one after the Cosmite Collection program and before the Xenoplague one, that I think makes it easier to get more Xenoplague units or to trigger evolution on them as well. Yeah, I think we can pull up the numbers and talk a little bit about them and why I think it could be good and maybe could be bad. Oh, of course, yeah, my face is covering this. I should have maybe moved this off to the side, but it's kind of necessary for the tier list. At least the format I've been doing. So this will make it cheaper for you to use covert operations, but hey, if you're not doing covert operations, what good is that? I'll give you +3 operational defense, which is that's not terrible. There's a lot of things that give you an equivalent amount of operational defense. And if it was just that, and the next thing, the infiltrator gets +23% or +30% damage, that would be pretty good all by itself. But it's a very late game doctrine, so I feel like it's not as competitive as the other late game doctrines. It doesn't give you that boost, that all around boost that you kind of need sometimes, unless you're going for covert operations. Then I could see this being very, very nice. I think that 40% reduction makes it easier for you to apply the operations that have to do with influence. At first, I noticed that it doesn't reduce how many points it takes to cast using these points over here, but it does reduce the amount of energy, and in the late game, if you're able to spend 200 energy on a doctrine, you probably aren't that tight on energy. Saving a little bit after that point isn't going to be a big deal. But saving influence, that's always a big deal. That was something that I definitely missed when I initially was thinking about my placement of this doctrine, and it might lead to me boosting it up a little bit further. Let's see. What else did I want to say about this? I think people had some notes on it. If they did, I don't know if I put them here. Yeah. It could have been in C tier, actually, to be completely honest. I think that it would make a little bit of sense there by itself, because you do need either hollow shifted units, or rather the infiltrating guys, or covert operations. You need to have gone down either one of those two paths to make this any good. And I guess I could maybe compare that to what is next to it on this stuff. The Cosmite thing, I think, is yeah, it's another one where it's like, is that always good? Yeah, this will just give you more Cosmite, and do you really want to spend Doctrine slots and 100 energy making it so that you can get a little bit more Cosmite? Like, I don't know. That seems very questionable. I'm sure it would work in certain strategies. Alright, let's start talking about the last doctrine I have on the Shakarn Doctrine tier list. Scorched Earth Policy is very nice if you are going to be raising. It's in the C tier because, you know, not every game is it a good idea to raise. Sometimes it makes zero sense to go around raising something, because you'll get way more out of absorbing a city, taking it and holding on to it. But if you're going to be playing against human players, or maybe against AI on some hard settings, or maybe the invasions have spawned and you can't afford to defend all the new territory you just got, then yeah, this makes a lot of sense. But in other situations, I don't know. Initially, I'd put it in B tier, but then I was thinking, I feel like I would probably pass this up in a lot of situations. So I think it's a C tier unless you're going for that kind of like burn everything down strategy, which the Shakarn definitely are designed to do a little bit more than other people. I mean, they're just hiding, you know, in plain sight, invisible or whatever, as hidden people in our society. I forget exactly what the lore is, but I think, yeah, them wanting to burn down the enemy makes a lot of sense thematically. And yeah, let's, I think, pull up the numbers now so we can talk a little bit about exactly what you get and if that's worth it. Yeah, haven't actually typed that in yet. It is, that was silly. Scorched Earth Policy. It will make it so that, yeah, you can get 75% more resources. That can allow you to get a lot of Cosmite. I saw somebody say they got 170 Cosmite from burning down one city. That's amazing, because I think you get Cosmite per pop, and yeah, that almost doubles the amount of Cosmite that you could get. But by making it take one less turn to raise, this makes raising a lot better. I think the default is only 3 turns, so making it take 2 turns means when you're playing in multiplayer, people may not account for that. They may mess up and assume that they have 3 turns to grab their city, and then they're out of city. That's terrible. It's really hard to come back from if you just like it's burned down in front of your eyes. Seems like a, a morale hit to me. What else were people saying? about this. Yeah, it just if you raise you get a lot of stuff out of it basically. You can get a lot of energy, a lot of cosmite, and I think maybe food as well, research as well. It's good stuff. But somebody was saying here that it's a bit too late in the game to unlock. They unlock it a bit too late in the game to make good use of it. So they think that they would rate it lower down on the list. I mean, it's only a tier 5 in the tech tree, so I think you could get to it relatively quickly. But I could be wrong about that. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the things that I brought up in this video. I'm going to be trying really hard to uh, make a complete tier list next week. So, yeah, hope to hear from you. Take care. See you around.